many things that we miss when we are away from home. The most obvious things being the people in our lives, our creature comforts, maybe our routines or rituals, maybe the language if we're in a foreign place and can't communicate with others, or maybe it's larger, more grand things like freedom of expression. Even though Germany and the UK are quite similar, there are three main things which I missed from Germany during my time here in the UK, and they are really all concerned with infrastructure and engineering. When I say missed, what I really mean is that I noticed just how poor these things are in the UK when compared to Germany. I think the largest gripe I have are the roads and infrastructure in general. But before we get onto that, I would like to tell you about phone reception in the UK. Now, internet coverage and phone reception are things which people often complain about in Germany. But let me tell you, the phone reception in the UK really is atrocious. And this might just be me, but I really don't think so. No joke. Even in major cities such as London, there seem to be pockets with no, or at least very little, very patchy reception. In fact, a recent survey from 2022 found that 42% of people in London have either poor or no signal at home. Now, there are various other surveys and studies that have been done as well. I won't bore you here with the details. You can check it up on Google yourself if you like. But I can confirm that the phone signal really is crap. Now you might say, so what? Why have you chosen this topic to talk about? Aren't you just making a mountain out of a molehill? And yes, I suppose I would agree with that. But as you might know by now, I am rather inclined to tend towards self-criticism and sort of introspection. And I learned quite a few interesting insights about myself through this process. I was on holiday. There was no reason for me to be online all the time. I was not expecting any important emails or calls or messages. And on top of that, pretty much all the restaurants, all the cafes, every establishment has a Wi-Fi in the UK. So I feel a little bit stupid talking about this. It seems a bit like a non-issue, but I did notice, at least in the first few days, that this made me very uneasy, not being connected, not being online, trying to send a WhatsApp and watching the little clock and seeing that the message was not going out, it hadn't been sent. This was stressing me out. Trying to load up YouTube or check my emails and nothing was loading. This made me feel very kind of on edge. And I don't know if you've ever found yourself sort of reaching for your phone without really knowing why. It can get compulsive. But after the first few days, I did realize that, nothing's happened. There's no catastrophes, there's no disasters. Everything's okay. I guess what I learned from this is that it is actually very important to go offline now and then, to leave everything else behind and just try to live in the moment. I do think that being present and living in the moment is one of the hardest things to do in this day and age. Most of us are either living in the future or living in the past. And even though I did miss, good coverage and internet and being able to, have a normal conversation on the phone without being interrupted or having a crackly line, I took it as a warning sign for myself to be more present. And I would venture that I'm not alone in this.
And this is something which I have not enjoyed. This is not a lot of fun in the UK because it's a small country. There are only a few sort of big roads, as in motorways. And for the rest of the time, you have to drive through really tiny, little, very narrow roads, which are often frequented by massive trucks. This is a definitely much more relaxing experience in Germany and probably in quite a few other countries.
So the decision to hire a car was actually the result of crisis management. We had initially planned to do everything via train. I love traveling by train. Traveling by train is my favorite mode of transport. There's just something very relaxing about it. It's just sort of effortless, watching the countryside glide by in front of you without really having to do anything yourself. It's somehow therapeutic when the trains actually run, that is. And we had received the info that industrial action was planned on the exact day that we wanted to travel. And so after checking various things, we decided a car would be the best option. So the roads and driving is really just a whole different experience in the UK than it is in Germany. For one thing, we seem to love our hedges in the UK. Now, I've not really thought about this too much, but I think there might sort of be a UK thing. I don't know if there are so many hedges on the continent, so to speak, but I could be wrong. It's just very unrelaxing because you don't know what's coming around the corner because your vision is impaired by these bloody hedges. Now, it's maybe an unfair comparison given the fact that Germany's Autobahn network is, one of the most extensive in the world. But not only are the roads better maintained and just generally more drivable, they do seem to cover really a lot more ground in their extensiveness. And in my experience, are just vastly superior. Like I said, it just was generally not very relaxing, but I am saying this as a passenger because I was not actually doing any of the driving myself. Having said that, this trip was highly unusual because the weather was absolutely amazing, and it is possible to really, truly experience some exquisite moments. During my time back here, I initially stayed in a really beautiful apartment, but during my travels, I also stayed in various B&Bs and hotels, and I was very thankful for the good weather because one thing that I did miss, one thing that I really noticed where the UK has a bit of a deficit is housing and general sort of construction. Now, don't get me wrong, I love the architecture in the UK. I love this red brick. I love these old Victorian, like big bay sash windows, Georgian houses. The chimneys, it's like a feast for the eyes. I do really love it, but when it comes to the practicality, when you actually go inside the buildings, that's a bit of a different story. Now, I am sure you've all heard about the German windows, the German insulation, and the general functionality of German houses. And well, it's true. When it comes to housing and sort of living, whether it's an apartment or a house in Germany, generally, the living spaces are built so that you can really control the temperature, the climate, and you are a little less sort of dependent on the weather. Everything is correctly sealed. The windows and the doors, the triple glazing is pretty common. And I think this is also one of the reasons why why airing out the place is very important, because everything is so tightly sealed. Obviously, it is a huge generalization. I do know there are new constructions which are now coming closer to German standards in the UK. But I think one of the reasons that luften, or airing out the place, is not really seen as mandatory in the UK is because things are not really tightly sealed and there is a lot of air circulation going on even if everything is closed. Which leads me on to my assumption why the Germans are so susceptible to Zug or to drafts, because they're very accustomed to living in highly controlled environments. And, this could be one of the reasons why the Brits complain about migraines and chest infections all the time, but I digress. As I mentioned in my previous video, which I made about how I see the UK now, there are many things to love about this place. However, if I were to hypothetically move back to the UK, which I'm not planning to do, but if I did, I think I would have to bring a team of German builders with me to sort out my living conditions. I would definitely think very strategically about where I would move to in terms of infrastructure and sort of mobility. And home Wi-Fi would need to be bulletproof to make up for the lack of adequate reception. These are just 3 things which stood out to me. If there's one thing you take away from this video, I do hope you put the phone down, you get outside, and you give your friends and family your full and undivided attention. Life is short, and we never know when it's going to end. As always, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate each and every one of you who tunes in. If you would like to do me a favor, please subscribe. It is free and it would make me very happy.